I think most of you have been around for a number of years, so you know the funding of for this work.
Yeah.
The funding of ITC, basically, I think we discussed before, funded by regular budget and extra budgetary. The regular budget, I think that we covered that, is funded by the UN and the WTO, and extra budgetary from the different donors. Right now it's 50-50, I think, depending on our ambition. The XB may be more than 50%. So, and again, so you can read this. The presentation will begin to you. As a quick thing, basically your RB is to cover the administrative cost, the infrastructure, the oversight, the kind of project design development. So it's, and if you, as a guideline, the RB is supposed to be for the benefit of all countries, not a specific country. So if you use that as a rule of thumb, that would apply in, I would say, 90–95% of the cases. XB, again, you're probably all familiar. You have window 1, window 2. Window 1, we have around 7 consistent traditional donors that contribute to us every year over the last 10 years. Window 2 comes and goes, again, depending on our fundraising skills. And within window 1, and again, there's a paper on how window 1 can be used. You know, you have category A project, category B projects, and again, you can sort of go through that in detail. Window 2, which is sort of, I guess, a better prospect for growth, even though for us, it would be better to go for window 1, because window 1 is, in a way, unearmarked, so we have much more flexibility in how we can use the money. Window 2 are always earmarked. You do a project in this country for this purpose. And then you have the revolving fund associated with us, a fairly small amount. And then when we execute projects, we earn what we call support costs. It could be 30, depending on the donors, could be ranging from 7 to 13%. The PSC income, there's always been a lot of controversy on that. And the instructions from the controller has now made it much more clear. Program support costs should be used mainly by DPS and OED. That instruction is clear. In the previous instruction before, said that it should be shared equally between the administrative sections and the program divisions. The new one is very clear. No program divisions. So you can see sort of it's more overhead in a way. And that's just a summary, like the RB, what sort of RB should be used for, and XB, what XB should be used for, and what program support cost should be used for. That's it? Oops, sorry.
Any questions?
Why is the rate reduced from 13% to 7% from the IF and EC?
It's historical. I mean, the 13% was decided based on the UNDP submission to the ACBQ, which was then adopted by the General Assembly back in 1980. So it's never really been reviewed. There's been a number of studies since then, which consistently showed that the cost of running a project is around between 25 and 30%. So we're not recovering full costs. And the 7% came up because of the negotiation with the European Commission. They started that. And again, it's historical. The UN Secretariat signed an agreement with the EC, agreed to the 7%. And a year later, the OLA, Office of Legal Office, wrote to the Secretary General saying that the agreement that the UN has signed with the EC was illegal. So that the controller said, sorry, we already signed it. So a lot of it is political. There's no rhyme or reason as to why it should be 7% or 10% or 30%. It's because the UN wanted to do business with the EC and they signed 7%.
And you're stuck with the 7%. So that shows you how much linked you are with the rest of the UN. We don't need flexibility to change that number?
That's a question, but part of the reason this number would go up and down is that theoretically that donor would then accept to see more costs directly charged to the project. That would be admin, project management, those are the things that make up your 30%.
That's
So
the
theoretically-
theory, but I think in practice, they would say no, which is then, it's a matter of negotiation. How desperate do we want the project, and what other sources of funding are there? But in principle, you're right. If they accept a lower 7%, they should pay for all direct costs. So it's something you need to keep in mind, that as much as possible, charge the project for whatever cost. Things like, if you have to do reporting, there's a cost to it.
But this is the principle with the EU. They accept a lower support cost percentage, 7%, but they also accept that there will be components in the project that will go to administrative support, reporting, and stuff like that. I don't know whether it's the case with ITC, but I know for partners in the field that if they have grants from the EU, they also have budget items to cover their costs. So it is included to some extent. So they cover direct costs.
Yeah, it depends on the delegations that you are negotiating with. Some of them will say, look, this should be paid out from 7%. So then you have to then refer them to the discussions that have really been agreed by EU headquarters. So it depends. And a lot of, it's very, very time consuming.
Yeah.
But you guys are at the forefront. So I think that probably the thing is, if you come across this, let's discuss. And then maybe you can provide you with documentation to back up the discussion.
So it includes EU and all EU member states, up to 7%.
Only the EU,
Only
funding
the
by the EU.
Actually, for the EIF, I think the EIF is a kind of an exception to the rule because for the EIF, for participating agency in the EIF, it is important to accept the 7%. So if ITC is implementing a project for the EIF, it needs to apply the 7% support cost. It was something that was imposed by the EU, actually as a donor to the EIF trust fund, but then all the member states, not the member states, but all the donors to the trust fund have endorsed that, and they are quite happy with having 7% of support cost, because it's an indirect way of imposing it on other agencies that will implement projects.
I think that the number is sort of fairly arbitrary. And I always say to our donors when we come into the discussion is that you have to look at the nature of the business. We charge 30%. Our nature is we arrange meetings, we have to do travel, we may have to do 20 travels. The WHO would charge you 5%. They do a procurement for 10 million of pharmaceuticals. It's totally different nature of work. The amount we do a lot of small transactions, whereas the other agencies they will do many large transactions, so they can afford to charge less. So you have to keep that in mind.
I want to ask about the sundry costs, the 2%, and whether we have discretion to not charge that, and if we do charge it, we have to document it all. Is that right?
That is sort of a way of, I guess, trying to make life easier for everybody, so that the things like telephone calls and so on, so you don't have to account individually. We spread it across all projects. The only exception is the EU, where they said no, everything has to be direct, so we have made an exception for them. When you said,
Well,
there,
we say that we'll reimburse it if we don't actually spend 2% on those things.
it's based on actual,
Yeah, so we can't spread it, we have to actually account for it, project by project.
no,
And give it back if we don't spend it.
it all goes into a pool, and then we spread it across all projects. So 2% is
I
an
see.
estimate. Yeah.
Okay.
What percentage of our operating budget goes to travel and for telephone costs? Because earlier on it was mentioned that 95% of our operational budget goes to salaries.
No, I think that's the UN in general, I don't know.
Okay. For
ITC is probably about 70%. I mean, our budget is 74 million Swiss francs. Our travel budget is about 700,000 Swiss francs. So
700,000, that's,
You say staff is 70%.
the staff is around 70%, yeah. But in terms of the amount of money for travel is around 700,000.
it's not that much.
Only regular or
Regular budget. Regular budget.
That's regular budget.
Regular budget.
Because most of the travel is done.
XP.
Yeah.
XB. So what is it, what's the amount for the XB then?
I don't remember offhand.
If no, any more questions?
What about, sorry, I got a question. This thing says RB should not subsidize XB activities.
That's the theory.
That
yes.
might make it sound like those of us who are on RB would not work on projects at all, or shouldn't be. doing
Well, you should not be
oversight.
You should not be delivering. That's clear.
Mhm.
What you can do is oversight, and so if you're delivering, you should be charged for the project.
So we know in practice that's not the case, I guess.
Wow.
In practice, I
I'm
think
not talking about those of us in the room, but some bad apples. So,
It's the same thing in the rest of the UN, it doesn't work.
And the PSC doesn't only do that stuff at the moment. We set the, it strikes me, that we set these, we're trying to behave to some parameters and failing quite a lot.
Well, I mean, we have to have boundaries, and then you think if we deviate, we need to have good reasons, and these are the boundaries. This is the starting point.
KC, but I think the problem here is the XP is subsidizing the RB.
I don't know.
I don't know.
My 90% of my time is on XP,
Yeah.
and I'm RB funded. So.
Yes, because we have the income from XP is higher than the RB, no?
Mm.
And your role is to supervise both RB funds and XP funds.
Yeah, but I'm funded by RB.
That's normal though, because it's a core post.
Mm.
but let's say the average chief might be spending most of their time overseeing
Explain.
so-called XP projects,
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
or even delivering on them. That's what he means, so there's probably a reverse subsidy.
What I think is also, I think the problem of ITC is also there are core posts which are not funded by RB and therefore is being subsidized by the XP.
The corpus, again, is historical. They were, the original definition of the Window 1 corpus was that they should have been funded by RB, but for whatever reason, it wasn't. And the XP was used to fund those posts, and then it has continued. And also, I think the reality is that to get something out of the RB will probably take 2 or 3 times as much effort as to get out of XP. And I guess the previous management had decided as a sort of strategy to not to spend too much effort on the RB and to devote much more effort on the XP. Now, the new one may change, who knows?
In my view, this sort of dichotomy does not serve us well in terms of trying to deliver on our mission, particularly. I mean, and it's really interesting to know, to see what the evaluation is written. And it describes, and I know we've been trying to make some progress on this, but it describes our XP, RB split in terms of funding for staff as a caste system, which is unhelpful to us. So I hope we can make some progress on this in the future.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's the alternative?
Well, I think we
Yeah.
At the UN, they have been able to go beyond that issue, the caste system, which now they give what they call continuous contract,
Yeah.
regardless of the source of fund.
Yeah, and
That's a
removing
more healthy. Yeah, they don't call them permanent, they call them what, continuous, I think?
Yes.
But they don't link it to the source of fund. Because I think they even know if continuous contract in peacekeeping.
That creates another set of problems, isn't it?
Yes, it
yeah.
does, but it made the staff feel less that they were within a caste system of those few under RB, then overhead and peacekeeping. They have so many sources of funds, of course, in the UN. So the concept of continuous contract. But how it is implemented is a very strange issue. But it was the attempt to go over that the idea of the caste system.
Yeah, I mean, there are several attempts at this caste system, and in some agencies you don't have P's and G's. You don't have sort of one scale.
Right.
Yeah, it's another part. Okay, Casey, thank you very much.
Right.
I mean,